So this is Ryan again. I'm sorry that the audio didn't work out so well in my last video. So now I'm on my 10-year-old Mac, and it's not as good for gaming as a Windows computer, but my Mac is still pretty reliable. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code. For you, you'll have to go to that Windows search bar and type Visual Studio Code. And then the icon is still the same on Windows. It's this blue fish looking thing on a white background, or maybe a black background, depending on night mode or so. So go ahead and click on that. And then when this opens, for you it won't show really a lot probably. For me, it's probably going to show the last project that I had open. Yep. So I'm going to close out these tabs. Again, for you, there probably won't be any tabs to start with. And then this should be more similar to what you would see the first time. You probably don't have Docker on your system, so I'm going to close a couple more windows. And so let's go ahead and go to Open. So we're going to open a folder, and I'm going to go to my Documents folder and 2024, and I'm going to create a new folder called Asher Videos. You can call this folder whatever you want, but I'd recommend making it something where you'll remember what it means in the future. So I'll click on Create, or you could hit Enter, and then I'll click on Open, and then let's go to this New File icon in the upper left, or you could click on New File on the Start page. Either way, I usually click over here, and let's start with our hello.py program. Now, when you first, so I'm going to ignore this update for right now. When you first open this, for you, it'll probably have a little pop-up saying, do you want to install a Python extension? And you should click Install. Now, in case you clicked X, which a lot of my students do, you can also go to this Extensions button on the left here. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle or some puzzle pieces. And I'm going to search for Python, and I'm going to remove my extensions just to show you the process. So I clicked on uninstall, and then for this Python debugger, it looks like it's already uninstalled for me. So I'm going to click on restart extensions, and then I'm going to click on install like you would do. And for me, that happened pretty quickly. For you, it might take a minute or a few minutes. For me, that happened quick, probably because it didn't really fully delete it on my side. So I'm going to go back to this File Explorer icon on the upper left and click on Hello PY. And I'll first just make sure that Python is working with Visual Studio Code. So I'll say hello world and Asher from Ryan. And I'll go to Run. For you, it might be some 3 dots where you click and then you find Run. You can take a look at my video without audio. So admittedly, this looks a little bit differently on Mac compared to Windows. And then I'll click on Python Debugger. And then in this terminal, we get a lot of output. And let's ignore most of this output and just concentrate on the very last line where it says our print message. So, okay, great, so that worked. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it Bart2, and my hello file, I'm going to control click and go to rename, and I'm going to call this one hello2 because I already have in my GitHub repository both hello and Bart. So that's why I'm changing the names of these. And now let's go ahead and do our Bart Simpson program. Our print statement will be, I will not be mean to Lisa. And we want this to happen 100 times in this case. Let's just say 100. Now we can do this in a couple different ways. We can do this with a for loop or with a while loop. I'm going to start with a while loop and say while counter is less than 50, we'll print our statement, and then we will also need to update our counter variable and set it to counter our old value plus 1. And let's make sure to set our counter variable to 0 initially. So then inside this loop, it'll say we are updating our counter variable and setting it to the old value 0 plus 1. And then we will print. And then this while will check if the counter is still less than 50. If it is, it'll repeat all the statements inside. So it'll say 1, which is the new-ish value of counter from the last loop. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then it will print again. And that'll keep happening until counter is equal to 50, and then it will stop. So let's go ahead and also mention the value of counter in here. And I clicked on save. I did Command S. For you, it would be Control S. But I believe it makes you save when you run anyway. And this looks good. I'm going to scroll up to make sure it starts counting by 1. And it does. Okay, great. And for our second 50, let's use a for loop. So I'll say for I in range. We could just say gibberish. And our counter variable could also be gibberish. But as long as you consistently use the same gibberish. But because that makes it kind of confusing and hard to remember our names, the usual name for this for loop variable is I. And it stands for the number of iterations, or really, it's kind of like a count. So it's kind of a fancy word for a count. So if we do for I in range 50, print counter, and I will just copy this, then this will not be exactly what we want, but let's see what happens. Okay, so we got 50 every time. Now that's because we're not updating our counter anymore. So inside this for loop, we could say counter plus equals 1. This is the same thing as counter equals counter plus 1. It's just a shorter way of writing that. Because we want to do this so often in Python, they give us the shortcut. And now if we save and run this, we will get what we wanted. Now we have another option, which is that we could just use our variable I and print out our variable I. But in that case, we again don't get what we want, because now for this range, it starts by counting from 0 up to not 50, it would do 50 numbers, so 0 up to 49. So instead we want it to start at 51 and end at 100. And we want it to include 100, so we'll say 100 plus 1. And let's go ahead and run this again. Okay, so you've seen two different ways that we can do this Bart Simpson program when breaking it up between a while loop and a for loop. The next thing we're going to do is review our hello HTML, again using Visual Studio Code. And then we're going to do an Olympic fan page. So let's create a new file. And I'm going to call this hello2.html, again because I had that hello.html from the version where I didn't have great audio. And then let's start out with our simplest possible HTML page, where I'll say hello, try to type that correctly. Hello, Asher, I'll say from Ryan. Lots of commas here for some reason. Okay, I'll go ahead and save. And then I want to view this. So for you, Asher, you would go to your Windows File Explorer icon. It's that little yellow rectangle or folder looking icon. For me, because I'm on a Mac, I use this thing called Finder. It kind of has a person's face. But same sort of thing, you get your folders, and then I'm going to go to my Documents 2024 Asher videos, and I want to take a look at this HTML page. So I'm going to control click. You would do right click, and there should still be an open with for you. And then you can choose whichever browser you want. You'll probably want to choose Chrome. I like Brave, which is a Chromium-based browser. So Brave and Chrome should work just as well. And so I got this pretty large text, and it's bolded. Now we can do the same sort of thing with a paragraph tag instead of an H1. And I'll just say hello, hello in this paragraph tag. If we go back to our web page and refresh, then you notice that the H1 is much, much bigger than the paragraph tag. And we can have lots of header tags, H1, H2, H3, H4, all the way to H9. And you might notice that we have a lot of repetition, so it'd be really nice if we could have a for loop, but HTML is not actually a programming language. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's kind of like a Word document in a way. So we can't do any programming with it, but we will look at CSS and more importantly JavaScript in the future, and JavaScript will let us use programming in our web pages. Okay, so let's see what all of these headers look like. And you can see that they get progressively smaller and smaller, and then eventually we have a couple repeated. So we have H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9 just look similar to the paragraph tag. So let's go ahead and right click, or I will control click, and go to inspect. And then in this elements, you can see that, oops, I forgot to give our web page the HTML head and body. Every web page is kind of like a person. They like to have a head and a body. So let's go fix that. So I'm going to put an HTML tag at the top of my document, and then I'm going to copy paste all of this. I'm going to actually cut. So Control X is to cut. For me it was Command X, but same thing. And then we'll create a head tag and a body tag, and I want these to be indented. I think on Windows it's a little bit smarter, so you might not have had to indent like me. And then I'm going to paste everything, and if it does paste goofy, for you I think it'll be okay. I think on Windows Visual Studio Code is a little bit smarter. If it does paste funny, we can highlight the lines we want to shift around, then hit Control, and then our angle bracket, or not angle, our straight bracket, which is kind of next to the P on the keyboard. So there's the left one moves everything left, the right one moves everything right. So we can save and then go check out our web page. And so this is actually the same, just now it shows us in our body are all of these headers. And it's a little unclear to me actually, but I guess because our H6 got so small, they decided to replace the rest of them with just kind of normal paragraph text. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove a bunch of these. We only really need that H1 and the paragraph. So I deleted those, and now we've finished our hello world. Let's go ahead and work on our fan page. And I did Simone Biles yesterday. I did Noah Lyles earlier today. So in this video, I'm going to create a fan page for Katie Ledecky, but you could do one for Mbappe or whoever you want to, Asher. So click on New File, and then I'm going to type in, I'll just call this fan page. And we could do spaces, but computers don't really like spaces. they've gotten kind of smart, sort of. I mean, the programmers really have gotten smart about how to handle them. But a computer is much, much happier with just letters and numbers, and maybe a dot one time for the file extension. Okay, so let's go ahead and again start out with our HTML, with our head. And in our head, let's create a title this time, actually, and say Katie, or maybe KL fan page. And then in our body, let's tell everyone a little bit more what this website is about. So in our H1, we'll say Katie Ledecky fan page. And I'm not sure if I spelled Katie Ledecky's name right, so let me go check that. And I'm going to want to grab an image of her to include as well. So I'll look for Katie Ledecky. I think I did spell that right. Let me copy this and then go and paste it. Yep, so that time I got it right. And then let's go grab an image that we can include in our website. So I'm going to say Katie Ledecky Instagram, because what Katie Ledecky has on her Instagram is pretty public. We should be able to use. All right, so let's go with just this photo. Oops, don't actually want to go to Instagram. So I'm going to control click. You would right click and click Save Image As. And let's put that back in our folder we've been working in. So Documents 2024 Asher Videos. And I'm going to call this Ledecky dot, and then I'd like this to be a JPEG or so. And it was a JPEG. All right, sweet. Okay, and so now back in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to create an image tag and say source equal to Ledecky.jpg. And the nice thing about Visual Studio Code is it'll pop up some things for you to complete, and you can hit enter for it to auto type for you. All right, and then we're going to add another word here, alt. So these are called attributes of this image tag. An image tag needs a source if you want to let it know which image you want to show. And then the alt is for people that are blind that can't see the image. Their screen reader will read whatever is in the alt when it would otherwise try to read the image. So we'll say picture of Katie Ledecky. Okay, so let's go ahead and save and then go to our website. And so I'll go back to my Finder. You'll go back to your File Explorer, Asher. And then let's go and right click on fan page, open with, and I'll click on Brave. You can click on Chrome. Okay, so this is getting there. So we have Katie Ledecky fan page and a picture of Katie. And so now let's include why we love Katie Ledecky. So back in our code, our Visual Studio Code, we'll create what's called a ordered list, or an OL is the name in HTML. And this will allow us to enumerate, like have 1, 2, 3, etc. And we'll have these list items, LI. And in this list item, I will say, Katie is super fast. And for another one, another reason why we like Katie is super nice. And then let's save and take a look and refresh. So we get Katie is super fast and Katie is super nice. Let's kind of explain to people why we have this list. So let's make an H2 tag this time and say reasons why we love Katie Ledecky. And then save, and then refresh. And okay, this is coming together. Let's add a third one and say Katie is a goat, greatest of all time at swimming. And it's really just her and Michael Phelps up at the very, very top, I would say. Okay, and let's create another list now where instead of it having numbers, it'll be what I call a bullet list. So let's create another header tag, and maybe this one will be an H3 saying facts about Katie. And we don't really want to assign any importance about which one's 1, 2, or 3. So that's why we might do an unordered list. And so we'll say Katie is taller than 6 inches and shorter than 72 feet. I don't know how tall Katie Ledecky is. And then we'll say Katie weighs more than a blouse, but less than Michael Phelps. Something like that. All right, let's save and then go take a look back at our website again. And okay, so our H3 is again a little bit smaller than our H2. And we have some facts, quote unquote, about Katie. And so if you do this fan page about Mbappe or someone, then you can write whatever you want, of course, but you can also search on Google, and maybe we'll close this off by saying, if you want to know more, go to her Wikipedia page, and we'll include a link for anyone that wants to learn more about Katie Ledecky. So I'll search first for Katie Ledecky Wikipedia. Okay, and then let's click on this link and then copy the URL, and back in Visual Studio Code, we'll create an H4 tag saying if you want to know more about, let's just say want to know more. These headers are supposed to be pretty short. And then in a paragraph, we'll say, do you want to know more about Katie Ledecky? Here is her Instagram, or not her Instagram, her Wikipedia page. And then we want that link to appear. So we'll use what's called an A tag. And we'll say, we'll just paste this link. But if we want this to be clickable on our website, we'll have to change that a little bit. Let's just see what it looks like right now. Okay, so right now, it's not clickable, and we'd also like this to be on a new line. So if you ever want to guarantee that something is on a new line, you can use the BR tag, which stands for line break. So let's save that first and refresh. And then this did create a break. It created a really big break. I think I wanted this more of right here or so. So let's refresh. It looks a little bit better. And then let's also put her Wikipedia page on a new line. So back in Visual Studio Code, we'll have another BR tag. And then we want to have this be a link that's clickable. And for the A tag, it's a little confusing. For an image tag, we say source, which is somewhere on our computer. When it's somewhere I don't know. For links, they have this href instead. And so we'll want to put this link in there. And then we can save and then go refresh. And now our link is clickable. It will be purple because I've already been there. It would be blue for someone that's arriving for the first time. And then let's go ahead and make one more modification, or at least one more, which is we don't actually need to repeat the website name here, but we can say click me. And if we go and refresh, then it says click me, but it still will go to Wikipedia. Okay, great. And then if you want to create a bigger web page, then it's useful to take a look at other people's web pages for inspiration. And someone who is a really great computer scientist, but has a very old school website, which is nice for us to learn from, is this professor, Tom H. Corman, from Dartmouth. So we'll say Tom H. Corman website, and click on this link. And then if we go to inspect, then in elements, I'm going to scroll up, and we can see that there's a head, there's a title, and then there's this fancy image here, and it says that there's a link rel, and then it goes to, interesting, it says href, but it goes to this JPEG. So let's try copying that and putting it in our own Visual Studio Code, in our own HTML file, I mean. But we don't want this to go to cormantiny.jpg. We want this to go to our Ledecky JPEG. Save. And then if we refresh our web page, then we notice that there's again this little picture of Katie there. Just like how Instagram has a little picture and Google has a little picture. Now we have our own little picture on the title of our web page. Okay, great. So there's a lot more that could be done. Tom H. Corman has a table, has these fancy horizontal rules, or HR, to have these horizontal lines. So there's a lot more that could be done here. But our next step will be to actually make even a better web page than Tom H. Corman. And that's by including some CSS to give our website some style. All right, Asher, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to chatting with you and helping you out, helping you learn a lot about Python and web development on Wednesday. Take care. Bye-bye.